Hello everyone. For starters, this is Epi-2 YouTube channel. I welcome you all wholeheartedly to this channel. Without much ado, I would like us to zoom into what to expect in this video. But before that, prominent among all, I would like you to be a part of this YouTube channel. We're a family. I would like you to be a part of this channel. To do so, I'd like you to tap on the subscription button first, and then you tap on the like button. So I'm going to take a few seconds while you do that. Please do just tap on the subscription button. Okay, now go to the like button as well. Alright, hope you are done. Okay, so let's zoom into what to expect in this video. I hope you enjoy this video. It's my fervent hope that you enjoy this video and that it fits the purpose for which you seek.
Half of this are not that expensive. So there are two options that I would recommend on the paid route. Number one, if you're a total computer noob and you don't really know much about computers and you're not very comfortable with navigating computers and stuff, like my housemate Sheen, you should just use Squarespace. No, they're not sponsoring this video. They sponsored a video of mine like 2 years ago. You should just use Squarespace. Squarespace is easy. It's $13 a month, and for that price, you get all of the things that you need. And if you pay for a year up front, which is kind of good because it forces you to take the website thing seriously, you also get a free .com domain name, which you can just use. But if you know a little bit about computers, the option that I would personally recommend is called Ghost. Ghost is a $9 a month, really good web hosting solution. It's what I've been using for my own website since 2016 for the last 5 years. I absolutely love it. My website today is still hosted on Ghost, and I'm like mates with the founder of Ghost. He's a cool guy. He's done an interview on this YouTube channel. They're a really great company. They're entirely remote. It's open source software. And if you pay for Ghost Pro, which is the hosting service, that's just $9 a month, and it's very easy to get. I have a cheeky affiliate link in the video description, ghost.org/Ali. I get a bit of a kickback if you sign up for that. But feel free to not use my affiliate link. I couldn't really care less. I don't need the extra pennies from that affiliate link, if we're being honest. I just think you should use Ghost because it's absolutely amazing, and I just love it. Overall, whichever platform you use, and I've given you 3 options, Substack, Squarespace, and Ghost, they're all pretty good. Whatever option you choose, don't overthink it. One of the biggest mistakes you can make when it comes to creating a website is thinking that the platform matters. Like, oh my god, WordPress or Webflow or Wix or Squarespace or Ghost or like 100 different solutions, spending ages like researching this. It really does not matter. Like, no one cares what platform your website is hosted on. The important thing is A, that you have a website in the first place, and B, that you write decent content for it every week. That gives you 99.9% of the value in the website. The final 0.1% comes from choosing the right platform and SEO optimization, all these other fancy features that really no one actually cares about. So overall, don't overthink the platform. I'd recommend Ghost personally, but feel free to use Squarespace, which is slightly more expensive, but very slightly easier to use, or feel free to use Substack if you need a free option. Secondly, what you might want is a domain. Now the domain is like aliabdal.com or like google.com or like facebook.com, and that links to your website platform. So initially, when you make an account on Ghost, you might start with aliabdal.ghost.io. That would be your URL. But that's not very pretty. It's not very nice saying to someone, hey, check out my website at aliabdal.ghost.io. It's just a bit amateur. That's partly why Substack looks a bit amateur. It's not very pro to be like, hey, check out my website, aliabdal.substack.com. What you can do is you can buy a domain like aliabdal.com, and that costs around about $10 per year. This is very cheap. This is less than $1 a month. It is less than the price of coffee. It's like buying a coffee every 4 months from like Starbucks. That's how much it costs to get a domain name, like $10 a year-ish. And then you link up that domain to Squarespace or Ghost. Not really Substack, you have to pay an extra $50 for that, but ignore that. But you link up that domain to Squarespace or Ghost, and now you can say, check out my website, aliabdal.com, and that just sounds kind of cool. If you're down for paying for a .com or .io or .co.uk or .whatever domain name, the service I use these days is Google Domains. It's easy to use, very nice. If you want a domain for free, then you're out of luck because you can't get a domain for free unless you're a student. And if you're a student, you can use Namecheap to get a free .me domain. And .me domains, they're not as pro-looking as .coms, but for a personal blog, it's actually very reasonable to have a .me domain. So if you're a student, head over to Namecheap. I've been using them for the last 10 years for my domain hosting, and I've only recently switched to Google Domains. Again, it doesn't really matter what domain registrar you use. The two that I recommend are Namecheap and Google Domains. And then when you're done, you've got your platform, i.e. Ghost or Squarespace, in which case you'll have aliabdal.squarespace.com or aliabdal.ghost.io, and then you have your domain, which you connect to your thing, and now you have a website, and it's taken maybe 5 or 10 minutes to set up. This is all very nice and straightforward. And again, to use the example of my housemate, this time last year when she decided she was going to start a website, she asked me, Ali, what platform should I use? How do I do it? I said, go to squarespace.com and you'll figure it out. And she said that she really hated me for doing that because it felt like I was throwing her in the deep end. But it's like, the whole point of these website solutions is that it's very easy to get started. You can literally go on squarespace.com, click the buttons, and it's just really, really obvious how to make a website. Making a website is one of those things that feels really hard if you haven't done it before. You're like, oh my god, I need to code, I need to do this and that. HTML, CSS, JavaScript. It's so easy these days. Back in the day, in like 2005 when I was making my first websites, yes, it was hard. It's now 2021, it's like piss easy to make a website. You literally just go on Squarespace or Ghost, click the sign up button, enter your email and password, and you're literally done. It's so easy. If you haven't tried it yet, I would 100% recommend you giving it a go. Quick caveat before we move on. Yes, I get that there are other free ways to do a website. You could use Netlify, you could use Heroku, you could open source Ghost, WordPress, check them out. Like all of that sort of stuff. If you know what I'm talking about there, then you know that this video, which is for beginners, is not for you. If you're also the sort of person that gets hung up on whether you want to use Netlify or Heroku or Ghost or this and that, chances are you're not the sort of person who actually writes anything once a week on a website. So I would suggest, at least from most people I've spoken to who are in that camp of being computer nerds who are focused on how can I maximize my ability to create a website for free, those are the people who are focusing on the wrong things. Focus on creating content every week and publishing it and making it good, rather than quibbling about whether to use Netlify or Heroku for whatever website you're hosting. Finally, let's talk about, now that you have a website, because you've seen how easy it is to make a website, what the hell do you do with your website? How do you actually make your website good? Again, this is a lot more straightforward than people make it out to be. Firstly, your website only needs 3 pages. It needs an about page, it needs a contact page, and it needs a blog page. Literally, that is all you need. Your homepage can literally just be your about page, or it can be your latest blog post, it doesn't matter. And then once you've got those set up, which again only takes about 20 minutes, you don't need to overthink your about page or your contact page. The real objective at this point now is to write a blog post and try and do it every week. Once a week is, I think, a good cadence. It gets you into the habit of writing, it gets you into the habit of publishing, it gets you into the habit of showing your work on the internet. At this point, people usually ask, well, what do I write about? And the answer to that is you can basically write about whatever you want. The only bar I have for what I'm going to write about is, could this potentially be useful to at least one other person in the world? If I'm writing about my bowel habits, that's probably not particularly useful to anyone in the world, therefore I tend not to write blog posts about my bowel habits. But let's say I've read a book and I'm like, this was a pretty good book, I learned a few things from it. I would write a blog post about the insights I learned from this book. Let's say I listened to a podcast and I was like, I listened to this episode of the Tim Ferriss show, that was actually really good with Seth Godin. There were these 3 things that stuck in my mind. Write it up as a blog post. That's the sort of thing that would be useful to at least one other person. Let's say I'm going through university and I'm, a first-year medical student. It would be very reasonable for me to write what the experience of a first-year medical student is like. Would that be useful to anyone else? Yeah, probably. It would be useful to people who are thinking of going into med school. Let's say you're like Sheen and you're doing a PhD. Would it be useful for you to write about your experiences of doing a PhD? Yes, it would, because potentially other people who might want to do that would be interested in what is the day-to-day experience of doing a PhD actually like. And there's a nice quote from Gary Vaynerchuk that I often come back to, which is, document, don't create. Like, creating content and the concept of that is actually really hard. It feels like a big deal. But if you just think about documenting the stuff that you're doing anyway, it becomes very easy to find ideas of things to write about. Like if I was starting a blog from scratch and I had 0 audience, nothing at all, I would just document the way that I'm living my life. I'd be like, this is my morning routine and this is why this is my morning routine. Here is an article that I read about X and this is what it made me think about. Here is a book that I read about Y and here's a quick summary of the book and a link to the book with an Amazon link. That's the sort of stuff I'd be writing about, and I'd be exploring any other kind of topics that I personally enjoyed. So Sheen, for example, is super into women empowerment and eradicating period poverty and improving access to girls' education. That's cool. She writes articles about that. I'm more into tech and content creation and personal development and how can we improve our charisma and social skills? And so I'd be writing about those sorts of topics that I care about. But the main thing is that once you set a goal of publishing something once a week, especially if you have an email newsletter associated with it, you just end up finding things to write about. There are zillions of ideas out there. You just need to pick one of them, write about it, publish it, and just do this every week for the next 2 years. And I can pretty much guarantee that your life will change in an interesting way. And after the question of what do I write about, the next question people always ask is, well, how will my stuff be seen? Let's say I write, let's say I had no audience. Let's say I wrote a blog post about, why I have a fake plant on my desk. I can talk about how I read a book by Richard Wiseman called 59 Seconds, and he talked about how having greenery on your desk encourages creativity. I could write a blog post about that and I'd publish it on my blog, but literally no one would ever find that thing. But the solution these days is very simple. When you write a blog post, share it on Twitter or Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever you have social media. Everyone has social media in some capacity, and if you don't, you're doing it wrong. You should have an account on Twitter because Twitter is amazing for professional networking and all that kind of stuff. You should also probably do LinkedIn if you're into the whole professional side of things, because LinkedIn's great. But once you write a blog post, you can literally just post a link to it on Facebook, post a link to it on Twitter, post a link on Instagram, post a link on LinkedIn, post a screenshot on Instagram. That's how Sheen, without an audience at the start, got to the point where her blog was starting to get readers. She just posted about it on Instagram. She had a few hundred followers on Instagram at the time, just friends and family. And through that, people found the blog. And then every time she would write any blog post, she would post about it on Instagram and on LinkedIn. And then on LinkedIn, you've got this sort of professional audience that cares about this sort of stuff. Instagram is more like people caring about her life because they're her family and friends. And then through those 10 or 20 people here and there reading an article, one of those people would then share it with someone else and say, hey, this is interesting, why don't you read this person's article? So really the way that people find your blog, they find your website, is not really through search engine optimization these days. Maybe it used to be in like 2005, but it's now 2021. Usually, for most personal websites, the way people find your stuff is because you've shared it on social media, to your own friends and family, and then someone there who's resonated with your thing has shared it a little bit wider. And yeah, at the start, no one's going to read your stuff because it's probably not very good. If you haven't had an experience of writing, you're probably writing some pretty crap stuff. But that's okay, like this is the sort of thing that improves over time. And certainly at the start, when I started my YouTube channel and my blog, no one was reading and no one was watching. I would get like 23 views on a YouTube video. And at the time, it's because my YouTube videos weren't very good. But over time, as I made more of them, I got better at making YouTube videos, I got better at writing blog posts, and I therefore built this audience over time. So if you're worried about no one's going to read my stuff, don't worry about it because it takes time, but also make sure you're sharing it on social media because that's just a very easy way for people to find whatever you're writing on your website. Now there's a few other frequently asked questions that I often get when it comes to the website thing. Number one, people always ask, how do I make my website look pretty? And I would say, don't worry about it. The design does not matter. If you use Ghost, if you use Squarespace, it's going to be pretty by default. And these days, when it comes to a personal website, the aesthetics of the website is absolutely not the thing people care about. People care about the content, they care about the ideas, they care about the writing. It's really all about the writing. And as long as your design does not get in the way of the writing, you don't need to worry about the design. You can just pick a default theme. Squarespace, they're free. Ghost has a load of free templates. For the first 4 years of my website, I was just using a free Ghost theme, the default one, and it looked pretty good. I'd get messages from people being like, oh my god, your website is so pretty, how did you design it? I'd just be like, look, it's just the default free theme that just comes with Ghost when you use Ghost as your website platform. These days, I use a custom design themed, but I've been doing the website thing and the content thing for 5 years at this point. So do not worry about design at all, focus on the content. Secondly, people often ask about SEO, which stands for search engine optimization. Again, completely ignore it. Do not worry about search engine optimization. It is very unlikely that your personal website will be getting any reasonable traffic from search engine optimization. Instead, focus on writing good stuff and sharing it on Twitter or whatever social media you have. And if it resonates with people, the kind of organic sharingness of your articles is what will lead to more website traffic compared to you worrying about SEO. Don't worry about SEO. It's the sort of thing you can worry about 3 years further down the line. People sometimes ask, how do I monetize my website? Again, don't worry about it for the first 2 years. My theory on this is that unless you've been writing weekly for at least 1 to 2 years, you don't need to worry about monetization in the slightest. And finally, people often ask, but like, what if I'm scared to put myself out there? You know, I don't want to use my real name online, or like, it feels really scary to like put myself out there and have a personal website. Trust me, I've been there. In 2016, I had all of these fears myself. I'd been wanting to set up a website for like years at that point, and I never did it because I was just too scared. But I found the solution, and that is all in this video over here, which talks about how writing online made me a millionaire. And in that video, I share how I got over the fear of putting myself out there on the internet, and how ultimately my personal website ended up completely changing my life. So check that video out over there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
What a wonderful video and a wonderful episode to come to an end. What can I say? It's been a pleasure having you all on my channel. I hope that this video fits the purpose for which you seek, and I would like to first thank all who subscribed to this channel to be a part of this family. so that we can extend the boundaries of this channel to other people to have a positive impact on this channel. Thank you all so much. And for those who were unable to subscribe, please, you can still do so. Kindly go to the subscription button and tap on it, and also the like button. Thank you. And also what this does is that when you subscribe, it encourages me, it motivates me to come up with more videos that will tailor your needs. So please just try and do this for me. I'm not asking of any payment or any sort. Just subscribe for me. That's all I ask for. Thank you. Hope you do, and I hope that you enjoy this channel, and then be a part of this channel. We'll have more times with each other. Thank you.